Hi, everyone. An absolute warm welcome to our Me Vision Academy presentation today. A special award of successful leadership to Dr. Thuli Tabudi. We'll introduce her in a moment. And after doing that, we'll also go into an interview about leadership and about the very reasons for giving her this award. And she's invited a few guests, family, and those that are special. So they'll be joining us as we go along. Just very briefly, for almost a quarter century, literally, we've been interviewing and working with top leaders. We've written a few books, and we now have Thuli, who is also an author. She's joined the author club, and we've written hundreds of articles. And all of this has culminated into what we call the Me Vision Academy. Me Vision Academy. And one of our core purposes is to track successful leaders and recognize and celebrate them, to then learn from them, which is what we're going to do today. And then to share that with the world in order to inspire more individuals to become successful leaders. And we believe the world needs this desperately. The world really needs this. So we've been tracking Thuli for a long time, for many years. We feel she deserves this prestigious, exclusive award. And welcome Thuli Tabudi. She's the HR executive for SPA nationally, and she's now an author and an influencer. And it's wonderful to have you with us.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Adrian, and thank you for having me. What an honor. Thank you.
I'm going to pin you so that we have you and then myself as we do the discussion on the screen. So congratulations, Thuli. We don't give this lightly. Society doesn't recognize successful leaders enough. And especially in the world we live in today, where there seems to be a lot of things going wrong, we do know there's a lot of things going right, and that there are a lot of great leaders out there, even visible leaders like yourself. But if we can elevate them even more and inspire others to become successful leaders, the world will be such a much better place. So what we're going to do is just look at the award and what you are being awarded for and what the recognition is for. I'm going to share. Okay, so that is the actual award. Let me just get it open. Something's in the way here. So Thuli, smaller. It's a successful leadership award. And it's to Dr. Thuli Tabudi. Someone else coming in, just letting them in. Awarded to Dr. Thuli Tabudi for what? For consistently leading self successfully. And it's clear, someone who can climb Kilimanjaro and write a book and be an HR executive for a big brand like SPA shows that she can lead herself successfully. Wonderful children online, and you can just see it on so many fronts. Consistently leading people successfully. And that's very, very important. Let's just see. Leading people successfully, that's been absolutely necessary. So we just ask you to mute yourself. There we go. Everyone just mute themselves. And then also successfully leading at the pinnacle of the HR industry as National HR Executive for SPA. And that's part of the congratulations. Leading organizations successfully. It's one thing to lead yourself successfully. It's another to lead people. That's a large portion of it. But then to lead organization, or you're part of the organization successfully. But also successfully impacting broader society as an author and a thought leader and influencer. And finally, your commitment to mentoring, inspiring future successful leaders. Even doing courses so that you can be a better coach and a better mentor. There are so many signs that you're trying to do that. And of course, I'm one of the co-founders of Me Vision Academy. That's our slogan, a journey to best self-confidence. So being confident in a certain way, and we'll talk a lot about that in the interview. So that's the award, Thuli. Congratulations. We're really excited, and thank you for joining us and letting us dig in a bit and ask you some questions so that you can share what you've learned on this journey.
Thank you very much, Adrian. I promise you, I don't know what to say at this point in time. I really am humbled and I'm grateful for the award. Wow. Yeah, it's taking time to sink in, but thank you very much, especially being recognized by a person of your caliber, your organization, because I know how much you value leadership and really investing in others and making sure that we continue to do good wherever we are. So thank you very much.
Yeah, the honor is ours. To start off, Thuli, our slogan, as I showed you, there is journey to best self. And then we add the word confidence, which we can talk about more. But my first question to you is, how have you gone about working towards your best self in obvious and less obvious ways, perhaps?
Okay, so I think if I can just say that when it comes to leading oneself, I believe that's where we build the muscle of leadership. I think it's a foundation of managing others. So you almost like perfect that skill in how you lead yourself. So as an HR person, for instance, we know that when we are recruiting, let's say a graduate with no work experience, that they do not have experience that they can actually talk about. So the next best thing is for them to tell you or demonstrate how they've actually managed themselves. So once one is able to manage themselves, they're able to transition into managing others. As they say, you cannot give that which you do not have. So managing oneself is a foundational skill that prepares you for future roles when you start managing others. So for me, it's been about having a compelling purpose. Why am I doing something? Why is it important that I invest in myself? Why is it important that I develop myself? Because I believe that when that purpose is clearly articulated, it becomes easy to make sure that you drive towards achieving that. So for me, it's been about investing in myself, having a quest for continuous learning, making sure that I define my own values and become relentless in making sure that I live them, using them as a yardstick against which I measure myself. So, and I mean, quite interesting, Adrian, that I got to meet you when you and I were doing a coaching course. Again, that was part of that question that says, what else? I think it's having the ability to say, I cannot possibly know everything. I'm sure there's always something or some opportunities for improvement. So what else do I need to do? How else can I better my offering? So how else do I lead myself, differently so that a yesterday is definitely not the same as what you were the week before. And a tomorrow is definitely a better outcome compared to a yesterday. So for me, managing self has always been about challenging Thuli to become a better version of what she's been, and always being curious about new information, about new knowledge. Because as they say, if you're not growing, you are dying. So it's been about how else do I empower myself? Because when I manage myself better, I can manage others a lot more easier. And also managing oneself is not just only something that you see at work. It even starts with your family. It's about your managing yourself also allows you to manage your own kids, your own family. And when they know why certain things are important to you, when they know what your value system is all about, it becomes a lot more easier to lead them because they know what you stand for. So managing the self is really for your own family, your own career. It's about your own life. Even before you venture outside and attempt to lead others, you've got to know yourself very well. You've got to be that person that you've used all these years to craft the skill of leadership before you can go to the world and attempt to become a leader of other people. That's what I believe managing the self is all about.
So, can I say acquiring knowledge is very important as you lead yourself and you prepare yourself, but then also acquiring knowledge about yourself, not just acquiring knowledge about HR or knowledge about finance, but knowledge about yourself is so important. And what happens with one's confidence? You see, this is why we say journey to best self-confidence, because as you journey towards a better version of yourself, as you put it, what happens to that confidence? Your confidence goes up, doesn't it? You become a more confident person.
Definitely. And a lot of these things are almost like a motor skill. All of us, when we initially started to drive a car, we did not even know where to start. And whoever was teaching you had to remind you the clutch, there, and they had to show you. But after doing it so many times and your confidence grew, you got to a point where you get into your car, you don't even think where the clutch and the brake are. Your feet find them because you've developed that muscle so much that your confidence in driving that car has actually improved drastically. You no longer have to think about it. It just happens. And I think that's what happens when you develop yourself and you understand yourself as a person. You get better at things.
Really, to what extent does leading myself, how I feel about myself, genuinely, okay, not how I project myself, but how I truly feel my self-image, my image of myself, how does that reflect on how I treat others? Surely there's a very strong correlation, isn't there?
Look, I think we have to be aware of our own feelings. But then at the same time, we need to be able to separate that which we can control. There are times when you might feel a certain way about yourself, but then the task at hand requires to actually show differently. And you then have to dial up because that's what that occasion calls for. But I think it's always about being aware of how do I feel about myself, like truly feel about myself, because it shows to the world. You cannot say you are passionate about something, but then when people that are watching you look at you, they don't see that passion. So it is important that we continuously work on how we feel about ourselves. Does it mean that we always feel positive 100% of the time? No, we don't. There are times when self-doubt sets in, but then we have to soldier on. We have to, I use a reflection quite a lot. So at times when it's very easy for you to kind of like feel that this is not taking me anywhere, when you reflect, at times it's about taking stock of where you've been, then you suddenly think, oh my word, okay, here I am starting to feel sorry for myself, but look at what I've overcome. So in my book, I call these your Kilimanjaros. We all have to climb the Kilimanjaros. Some are big and some are small. And the reality of it is when you are faced with a current mountain, it looks so big that you think there's no ways I can even attempt it. But when you start reflecting and taking stock of where you've been, you suddenly think, in comparison to the challenge I faced 20 years ago, this is actually nothing. If I managed to achieve what I achieved back then, or what I did to overcome that, surely I can actually do this one as well. So I find that reflection helps me a great deal.
Yeah, it's a good point there. And am I right in saying it's fair that as you climb your leadership ladder, as you take on more leadership responsibilities, you will have moments, I call them crisis in confidence. So I go to a next level, and then I know I need to be confident, but it's new, it's audacious, it's challenging. And then we all, no matter what level, you go through a crisis in confidence, and then you have to just work through it, process, gain the experience, fall back on appreciation for what you have overcome, fall back on what you have achieved, and just regroup, and then the confidence starts coming back. Is that a fair reflection of kind of how we climb the ladder?
It's definitely a fair one. And I would even go a step further to say what is important is that when that self-doubt sets in, I'm assuming that we've all surrounded ourselves with people that we trust, that are part of our inner circles, who you can actually phone and say, this is how I'm feeling at this point in time, and so on and so on. And they are able to give you a perspective. And at times, I think we're too critical on ourselves. That's just how life is. They might actually, show you the same phenomenon through a different lens. And suddenly you realize that actually I was judging myself too harshly. Actually, that which I thought was going pear-shaped to another person looking from the outside in, that's actually normal, So at times we do need to bounce things off people. At times they do need to tell us the truth, to say, this is bad, this is going the wrong way. But at times there might be that sounding board that we need to realize that what we've amplified as being too challenging or bad is actually not bad. It's actually maybe average. Maybe it might not be great by our own standards, but to a person who's looking in, it's actually acceptable.
Yeah, good point. So leading self, absolute foundation to leading others, leading organization, leading successfully in any which way. It is sad, though, that a lot of leaders do reach the top because of their expertise or because of lots of reasons, without really leading themselves effectively from a values perspective, perhaps, or from a moral perspective. But let me just move to people. What have you learned around helping people reach their best self? So obviously half the battle is won when you're working hard at becoming best version of yourself, and you are on that journey. Now you need to lead others and lead them to their best selves. But what are some tricks, some gems you've learned in getting the best out of people, in leading human beings?
So I think that as a leader, so when you are still managing yourself, you are being measured on how you are delivering. But when you start becoming a leader, you are actually achieving through others. So it's about that ability to develop a team that is able to deliver on the objectives that are required. So it's that realization that says, unlike when I was managing myself, in a way, I was a specialist. If something needed to be done, I just jumped in and got it done. When I'm managing others, I'm now managing specialists. And even with the best intention in the world, there's not a possibility that I could do everything that needs to be done. So in order for me to deliver on my objectives, I need to rely on other people. And that is a humbling realization to say, for me to achieve what needs to be achieved, it's not going to be done because Thuli went out and did it. It's going to be done because Thuli's team pulled together under Thuli's guidance and they delivered. So that calls for the understanding that we are greater and better together, because when we are teaming, that's what we are doing. So it's about surrounding yourself with people who are different and therefore bring in diverse thinking. It's no use bringing another Thuli because I already have a Thuli. So I don't want to replicate another Thuli. I need to bring someone who complements me. I need to bring someone who helps me become a better version. And hopefully I do the same for the team. So it's about building a bench strength by ensuring that you minimize the weaknesses of individuals and you maximize their strengths. And in a way, people complement one another. So I think as leaders, we are tasked with seeing the good in people, because at times they don't even see that good. It's like they say, when you're on a dance floor, you are busy dancing or stepping on someone's toes that you don't even see how you are performing. But someone who's standing on the balcony and looking down is able to actually see what's going on, truly what's going on, a lot better than someone who's actually on the dance floor. So as leaders, at times it becomes our job to hold the mirror up to people and show them what we see. Because at times they might be so busy in the scrum trying to get things done for them to even notice that I'm actually having a good play. I'm actually doing a good job. And as leaders, we have to at times show people the good that we see in them. And I'm a beneficiary of that. There's been instances in my own career where I'm busy doing my job because I am getting paid to do the job. That is what is expected of me. And when there's an opportunity, I don't even think about applying for that opportunity until someone that I respect, someone who is a leader, who I look up to, says to me, Thuli, are you going to apply for that position? And I'm like, do you think I should? Then they were like, of course, you are already doing this. You're doing so well here. You're doing so well here, and so on. And at that point in time, and I think, oh, okay, I've been so busy on the dance floor, focusing on what needs to be done, that I haven't actually stepped back to say, how actually am I doing? Someone else who's looking from outside in has seen something that I have not seen. So as leaders, we are meant to be talent scouts. We are meant to be people that spot people's potential, even at the time when they don't realize the potential themselves. So I think as a leader, you also cannot control everything. So you need to build trust and allow people to execute and give them the freedom that they need to do that. Because you cannot be everywhere all the time. And also, if you want to be involved in everything, it means that you cannot even take leave because you're so worried about, if I go away for a few days, would they cope? Well, that's our job, to build teams that can, continue even when we are there. The same applies to our families. We ought to be building families that, as sad as it would be, because we are going to be leaving our kids, so that when the time does come, we are content knowing that we've done our bit. We're leaving kids that, even though they would be sad at the loss of a parent, but would be able to continue because we've done a good job in developing them, in capacitating them to make sure that they can actually do the job that needs to be done. So when we empower others, we allow them to become a better version of themselves, but we also free ourselves to focus on other things. When your team is running like a well-oiled machine, it means that you can look for other opportunities to say, what else? What else should we be doing? Instead of being so worried about, are they coping? Oh, no, they need me, and so on. And I think that is the power of empowering our teams.
Yeah.
And of course, in all of this, I think communication is key. It's about articulating the bigger picture. What are we trying to achieve? And making sure that everyone understands their part in executing that strategy. But then allowing people to go and do it. Of course, they'll make mistakes, but knowing that there is always that place that they can come to bounce off ideas, to say, what do you think? I've tried this, it's not working. And also allowing people to make mistakes, because just because I've been around for a long time doesn't mean that a 25-year-old in my team has the same experiences. And at times I do need to allow them to experience it and see that it doesn't work, rather than me saying, oh, no, that won't work. We tried it some 20 years ago. So I think it's also about being approachable and cultivating that positive relationships in the workplace, because I believe that if the culture in the workplace is conducive to people becoming the best that they can be, it can actually result in a successful execution of the objectives. Because after all, the culture has got to be good, because people spend most of their awake time at work. So I might finish work and get home, but the reality is, maybe when I get home, I'll have maybe 2 hours of finishing whatever I didn't finish at work, have dinner, take a bath. and then ultimately go and sleep. So I might be at home for, let's say, more than 12 hours. But the truth is, 8 of those hours, I was actually asleep. So I was not conversing with anyone. So maybe only 4 of those hours were actually time when I was speaking to someone. So most of our awake time, we actually spend it at work. So it goes without saying that then the workplace must be a place where people can thrive in, a place where people feel that they can actually regard it as a second home. I think that is what managing others is all about.
I was wondering what feedback plays here. I mean, the role of feedback. How good are we as a society in giving feedback? So first of all, to our employees, direct feedback. They really need to hear sensitive feedback, or allowing our employees to tell us how we're leading as leaders. Are they happy with how we're leading? But is it easy for someone to tell their boss how they're really leading? In general, you say good communication. I guess feedback is such an important part of this loop of growth. Feedback from a parent to a child, child to a parent, employee to a leader, leader to an employee, just everywhere. You often look at leaders who are hierarchically so high, like a minister or a president, and you think, are they getting pure feedback about how they are leading, about how they come across, their blind spots, that they have, and no one is telling them because they're sitting in a powerful position. Just maybe a few seconds on the importance of feedback.
So I think you're right, Adrian. We don't do it often enough. We don't seek feedback. And I think it's really, really, really important. We do need to know how we are doing. And as hard as that feedback might be, when we invite that feedback, it allows us the opportunity to try and better whatever needs to be worked on. But it also allows people to feel that they can be heard. They can speak out. Does it mean that it's easy to give feedback to your superior? It's not. But I think it's also about how it is given. So whether it is about, as a manager, giving feedback to a subordinate, even during that time, it's got to be given with kindness and care. It's got to be given in a respectful manner. Again, drawing the connection to say, why is this important? That's because one of our goals is the following. So therefore, the feedback that I'm giving you relates to that particular goal. If we don't get it right, it actually impacts on the delivery of that goal. So it's about making sure that the feedback that we are giving is clear and the person understands why it is important. And likewise, as leaders, we do need to allow our staff the opportunity to give us feedback, whether it's during team meetings, 360 degrees, culture surveys, but we need to cultivate an environment that allows people to give us feedback, because when we get feedback, as difficult as it can be, but it allows us to make things better. It allows us to actually grow. So I think that it is one of the management functions that is possibly not used as well as it could be. Yeah. And we definitely need to look at bettering that. And in fact, we are also very economical with feedback. At times when a person is, let's say, executing 90% of what they are supposed to be doing, instead of focusing on the 90% that they are getting right, we hop on the 10% that they are not doing well.
That's easy. Yeah.
When in essence, we should be working on, first acknowledge the 90% that's being done well, because that's actually a plus A. And then using that positive reinforcement of saying, how can we actually move from 80% and 90% to 92%, but in a positive way that still recognizes the good work that is being done with the 90%, but instead we hop on the 10% that's not being done.
So bring both into the picture, don't just bring the negative in. Thuli, let's just move on. So we speak about leading self. Great, some gems there. Leading others, leading people. You gave really good insights there that we'll also break into shorter clips that we share with the world. But then you get to the organization. There's still some parts missing. If you lead yourself well and your people well and your teams well, There's no doubt that you're in a good position as an organization. But from HR's perspective, if I can call it that for a moment, what are the essentials of successfully leading any organization when you sit from the HR perspective? If you're going to lead the whole of SPA successfully, or Harmony Gold, or whatever it is, what are just a couple of essentials that you've picked up from your angle where you sit?
I think what is important is that the element of leading people has got to be owned at the highest level. There must be a commitment by the leadership, whether it's ExCo, whether it's the board, about the importance of making things better, about leading the organization in an appropriate manner. So that has got to be something that is understood, because it cannot be on autopilot. So human resources then comes in at a level that says, if this is what we are trying to achieve, well, part of achieving what needs to be done has got to be done through our people. So how do we then make sure that we are leading our teams appropriately? So it's about making sure that senior leadership takes ownership. They understand the task at hand. They also are committed to making sure that they are steering the business in the right direction and open to feedback, because when as leaders, you get to a point where you think no one can tell you anything because you know what is good for this business. I think that's a recipe for failure. So it's about leading the organization through listening to people, the stakeholders, making sure that the culture that is in the organization is conducive for people to thrive, making sure that the resources that are required to develop people are there.
Thank you, Thuli. So before we just look at your book towards the end, we'll touch on the book, of course. The most important part, also part of the award, is we say one of the key functions of a leader is to build more leaders, right? Yes. I mean, you've heard this, the quote is thrown around like it's common knowledge, but common knowledge is not always common practice. Common sense is not always common practice. How are we doing as a society in multiplying more successful leaders? Because you can have the Thulis and the Thuli Modonselas, and you can have the CEOs and all these great leaders who do so well at the top. But ultimately, you need successful leaders all the way through the organization. What is HR grappling with most when it comes to multiplying more leaders, creating more successful leaders? Are we doing enough as a society? What are your thoughts on that?
So I agree with you. I think one of the most important tasks of a leader is to actually create sustainability for the business. So when we exit, would there be enough people that would continue and we hand over the baton to? And that has got to be the one thing that keeps us awake at night. And I don't think that we are doing enough of that. And that calls for organizations to look at the human capital, not from a compliance point of view, but from a sustainability point of view. From a business perspective, it could even be about the markets that we're serving. So this market requires someone who's between this age group. So we need someone who's within this age range, because they will understand that market better. So it's about making sure that you've got someone, let's say, who's younger, but is required to drive the business going forward. So on the HR side, I think that perhaps as a country, one of the things that we haven't done that well is to invest a lot in people development. So given our history, I mean, our country is not a first world country. We are a young democracy. So we've got a lot of history that we are dealing with. So people development is absolutely key. So I don't believe that we are doing a lot to do that. And as a result, we talk about the war for talent, where we are all fishing in the same pool for suitable candidates, but then the pool starts shrinking. So I believe that as organizations, that's what we need to be focusing on, building the capacity, building the bench strength, so that it's easy to find the right skills, because we often talk about the scarcity of skills. Well, yes, we do have the scarcity of skills and we've got the history, but we need to be doing more. We need to be accelerating the pace of skills development so that we get to a point where we are able to find skills wherever we need them. So I think that's something that us as HR people grapple with quite a lot, but also things like the company culture is something that is also very important. As they say, where you've got a culture that is great, that culture can drive the business strategy. So it's about making sure that we've got a culture that allows people to thrive, that allows people to become a better version of themselves. And that's not always easy because it's always seen as a soft skill, when in essence, how people feel in an organization determines the success of that organization. Because of all the variables that you've got in an organization, you know, technology is not affected by the environment. Equipment is not affected by the environment, but your people are affected by the environment. So when the culture is not conducive, when the culture is not great, it does affect people because they are fluid compared to, I mean, if you've got a truck, that truck stands there until you start it. It's not affected by how you're feeling and so on, but people have feelings, and we need to be making sure that we've got cultures in our organizations that allow people to thrive.
I'm going to share a poll we did some time back. I think it was even before COVID or during, it was before COVID we did this poll. And even your audience here today, I'd love, they're welcome to vote inside the comment box. We asked this question. We said, on LinkedIn and on Twitter, we did this. We said, is the world producing better or worse leaders in politics and business? Is the world producing better or worse leaders in politics and business? And if we had to ask this audience here what they think in general, we say, you know, we're saying collectively speaking. I can tell you what the results were that affects all of us here today. Between 76 and 86%, so depending on LinkedIn and Twitter, but pretty much close to, let's say 80% of the people voted worse. And it was a significant poll. So if 80% of people out there believe that collectively speaking in politics and business, we are producing, as a society, worse leaders, not better leaders. Thuli, how can it get worse? You know what I'm saying? I mean, do we want it to get to 90% before we up our game in terms of consciously finding, first of all, that's what we're doing here, okay? We're not just finding the successful leaders at a high level. We're actually wanting to go into organizations and say, who are the successful leaders already, and award them. Let's showcase them. Let's find them so they can spread their influence further. But, you know, what must we do as a society in politics and business to make sure we move away from that 80% to, I don't know, just at least the right direction, because it's going the wrong direction now, and it certainly looks that way on a macro level. Just your comment on that poll, and what else can we do? I mean, your influence is sparse and broader, perhaps somewhat, but what more must we do to change that kind of perception and reality?
Look, I think it definitely is concerning. If that's how the survey panned out, it is concerning. And I think we've got our work cut out for us. We need to be doing more. And perhaps we need to be going back to the basics to say, let's get the feedback. Where are we going wrong? And sit with the feedback and internalize it. And then say, what are we going to do about this? I think when you get feedback and that feedback worries you, you're bound to do something about it. But when you get feedback And your attitude to it is, I don't care. What are they smoking? They're crazy. And you start name calling. Are they mukhus? And I mean, so it's almost like you then start implementing that external locus of control. Instead of saying, what is my role in this situation? You are saying, they are fools. They are crazy. That can't be right. Instead of saying, what is it in me that I've done to contribute to the status quo? And what can I do about it? So I think we need to unpack the feedback and sit with it, understand it, and then say, if that's a feedback, what am I going to do from my side to better that? Adrian needs to say, what am I going to do from his side and someone else? Because then collectively, we will start seeing the improvement. We will start seeing the trajectory that's going up. I think it's when you get the feedback and the answer is, well, I don't care. They must be crazy. Oh, no, that's nonsense. I think that's probably where we're at, where we are not taking the feedback that people are giving seriously. And people talk in different ways. At times, it might be ways that we don't like, but nevertheless, they still do tell about their dissatisfaction, their unhappiness. But it's when we listen to that and undertake to do something about it. It doesn't mean that everything that has been raised, you can fix. You know, out of the 10 things that have been highlighted, maybe it's about saying, what are those things that I can do something about right now? What are those things that I can't do anything about? But then communicate. Out of the 10 things, I can't do anything about these 4, and here is why. But these 6, I think we can do something. But also engaging those individuals, because at times I might think I understood the message, but maybe I haven't. When I then unpack it to delve deeper into the understanding, and you are unpacking it for me, then I'll start understanding what it is that is not right. So that when I then go back and put together action plans, it's action plans that are addressing that which is wrong in the first place. Because when I don't understand what is wrong in the first place, I'm likely to put corrective measures that I think as truly are sufficient. And meanwhile, the person who actually asks for the change is not even agreeing with them, because I did not consult them in saying, let's put together a plan of action. Does this talk to your need? Does this talk to what was wrong in the first place? And only then do we then start saying we've got action plans. I don't think we use a lot of feedback in our society.
Thuli, thank you so much for that. Let's end off with, you took on Kilimanjaro for charity a few years back, actually, and you then decided to turn it into a book, Inspirational Leadership Lessons from Kilimanjaro, which is brave and it's exciting. Why would someone get your book? Why would, is it just leaders? But let's just say, if I'm in a leadership position and I want to be inspired, is this the book? What's the book going to do for leaders or for anyone?
So I did the Kilimanjaro trip in 2016, and I came back. I didn't plan to write the book, but there were just so many lessons that were compelling that I got from Kili. So at some point I thought, I'd love to share these lessons with others. But then I thought, no, maybe not immediately. Let me try and see if I can apply them in my own life, personal life as well as work life. So last year I got to a point where I thought, you know what? I've actually practiced these lessons enough. I now believe that I can actually tell the Kilimanjaro story. And that's how the story then was born. So the Kilimanjaro book, if you ask the question, why should a person get it? I believe that it's not just a book for a business leader. It's a book that a young person can read, a teenager, a person at university. It's a book that an individual who's trying to manage themselves can get. It's a book that as a leader who's managing others can get, because it talks to the lessons that I got from Kilimanjaro. Amazingly, I don't consider myself, a well-read person when it comes to leadership, but I'm curious by nature. And I think with my studies, I've read my fair share of books. And I always felt that there was a disconnect between the theory of leadership and the practical side of leadership. It was almost like the theory will tell me something that makes sense, but I couldn't see it in practice until I went on this Kilimanjaro trip. And suddenly everything came to life. I could see the theory and the practice being applied in this simple but effective operation. And I found myself asking questions during this trip, unbeknown to me that I was going to be writing the book. And they just made sense. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. This is amazing. So if you ask the question why a person should get this book, it's a relatable. It offers a practical examples. At the end of each chapter, I talk about the lessons, the summary. I also do a bit of literature review, just in terms of what is the status as we know it, and ask a couple of maybe controversial questions to say, imagine if organizations did this. Imagine what would be the outcome if that happened. Or why aren't we doing it? You know, what are the areas that still need focus? So it is a book for anyone. It is a book that is relatable. It is also a book about building that muscle of managing oneself, managing others, but also a reminder that in life we are always climbing mountains. It's about how do you actually climb that mountain to finish strong, and how do you overcome those challenges. You know, I talk about the last 140 meters before you reach the peak. That took me an hour. How do you get to a point where the body is tired? The body says we can't go anyway. How do you then let the mind take the lead? Because I think all of us, at some point, you get to a point where you are exhausted beyond comprehension. And you need to make sure that your mental capacity is strong enough to just take you over that last stretch.
Thank you so much. Much inspirational leadership, Thuli Tabudi. Dr. Thuli Tabudi, thank you so much. And thank you for your time today. Good luck with the book, and good luck with grappling with those issues of getting more leaders out there. You know, that is certainly something we grapple with hugely, and we keep trying to lift our game as far as that is concerned. So that was Me Vision Academy, recognizing the successful leadership of Dr. Thuli Tabudi. And very quickly, those who came in late, I'm going to show you, this is the, here we go, an exclusive recognition of successful leadership awarded to Dr. Thuli Tabudi for those reasons: consistently leading self successfully, people successfully, leading at the pinnacle of her HR career, the HR industry as national HR executive for SPAR, but also impacting broader society now as an author, but thought leader, and the commitment she's always had to mentor, inspire future successful leaders from Me Vision Academy. So that's the award that we just gave her, and then we had the very important conversation. So well done. Let me put everyone, I'm going to just unpin, remove pin, and remove my own pin, and see if we can get everyone out. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and especially Thuli. Thank you so much, and all the best. Thank you for what you're doing in our world and in these people's worlds, no doubt, and all the best.
Thank you very much, Adrian. I really, really appreciate it, and what an honor it is. Thank you so much for the good work that you are doing. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.